everyone, it's Miss Leah again, and we are back with LJM Storytime. Today's book is called Waiting in the Wings by Julie Andrews and Emma Walton Hamilton, illustrated by E.G. Keller. Here we go. Mr. and Miss Puddle Duck were expecting their first clutch of eggs. It was time to make a nest, but all the good spots by the water's edge were already taken. "What shall we do?" asked Miss P. "We don't have much time." "We'll find our own special place," Mr. P replied. They waddled and toddled up to the wharf and into town, and came to the library. "It's certainly peaceful," Miss P quacked. "And our babies would learn a lot," Mr. P clacked. "Quiet, please," the librarian whispered. "People are studying here." The puddle ducks quickly flapped away. "Ducklings can't be quiet," said Miss P. They pottered and patted and came to the fire station. "It's bright and cheery," said Mr. P. And clean and shiny," Mr. P nodded. The siren blared. Wah! "But too loud for ducklings," Miss P shrieked. Excuse me, "but too loud for ducklings," Miss P shrieked as they scuttled away. They searched all over town, but couldn't find the perfect place to build their nest. "I'm tired," Miss P yawned. "I need to take a nap." She hopped into a flower box and nestled in between the daffodils and tulips. Mr. P looked up at a poster on the building in front of them. "Feathers," he remarked. "That's a good sign." "Let's hope so," said Miss P, settling in comfortably, "because our eggs are on their way." One day a coat rack draped with feathers rattled past the flower box and into the building. "Wow!" Mr. P quacked. "What goes on in there?" "Nothing as important as what's going on in here," Miss P replied, fluffing her wings and around her growing number of eggs. A few days later, a loud buzzing and banging shook the flower box. "What now?" Mr. P squawked. "No need to ruffle your feathers, dear," Miss P replied, settling lower into the nest. "Our eggs are nicely sound-proofed." Soon, an altogether different sound filled the air, a pleasant, melodious one coming from inside the building. "Oh my," murmured Mr. P. "That's sweeter than any bird song. What could it be?" "Why don't you go find out?" Miss P suggested. Mr. P waddled cautiously through the open doors, then tiptoed down a dark passageway. Rounding a corner, he stopped in his tracks. An enormous room stretched before him. Inside, a group of people were blowing, tapping, and plucking curious objects, making delightful music. Mr. B quickly ducked out of sight and listened in wonder. The following day, and each day after that, Mr. P stole back into the building to watch, listen, and marvel. More and more people joined the group, some singing, others dancing. Afterward, he demonstrated all he had seen and heard for Miss P. "That's lovely, dear," she cooed, swaying along to his warbling. Another day, she gently tapped her eggs in time to his lively dance. "You must teach our little ones when they arrive," she enthused. "It won't be long now." The next time Mr. P crept into the giant room, he sensed a new energy. Colorful lights twinkled overhead. Someone was sweeping the floor, and someone else ran by with an armful of pages. Mr. P hopped onto a chair at the back of the room for a better view. And action! A booming voice called, "Places, everyone!" All the lights went out. Music began. Spotlights zigzagged across the floor, and the performers burst into view, dressed in sparkling clothes and waving feathered fans. Everything Mr. P had seen and heard now came together in a spellbinding story, with sensational songs and dazzling dances, all making one marvelous magical show. At the end, the company formed a line and kicked their legs high, then climbed a grand staircase to pose for a spectacular finale. Unable to contain his enthusiasm, Mr. P jumped up, flapping his wings and quacking loudly. The surprised performers peered toward the unusual sound, and Mr. P realized he had been discovered. He stumbled and fumbled out of the building, only to be greeted by a flapping and quacking even louder than his own. Miss P was in a panic. Tiny ducklings were toppling out of the flower box and onto the ground, pecking, poking, peeping, and piping in all directions. "They're here!" she cried. "They're all here! We must get them to the water." Passerby had gathered in surprise. Cars honked and dogs barked. It was pandemonium. Miss P stretched her wings wide in an effort to protect her new family. Mr. P was stunned for a moment, but as the puzzled performers spilled out of the theater, he suddenly knew what to do. "Places, everyone!" he bellowed. The startled ducklings fell into line. And action! The puddle ducks began to march. The performers fanned out a clear path, and the musicians struck up a lively tune. What a spectacle it was! A chorus line of ducks, singers, dancers, musicians, and townspeople all parading down to the wharf. Finally, they reached the water's edge. Miss P jumped in first, urging her ducklings to follow. Splish, splash, splash! All but the tiniest one tumbled in. He teetered on the edge, afraid to take the plunge. Mr. P gave him a gentle nudge, then leapt into the air and clicked his heels together in delight before joining his family in the water. The audience roared, "Bravo!" As they paddled toward the sunset. Miss P sighed with contentment. "That was quite a show. Let's come back again next year." "For an encore," Mr. P declared. Then, with a flourish, he tipped into the water and fanned his tail to make his own fabulous feathered finale. The end. And this book is called Waiting in the Wings by Julie Andrews and Emma Walton Hamilton. Art by E.G. Keller. I really hope you enjoyed this book as much as I did, and I will see you next time at LJM Storytime. Bye!